Hello friends, this is Chapter 2 of The Mother's Promise. Chapter 2. As cancer care coordinator, Katie Littleton delivered bad news for a living. In 5 years at a job she'd given hundreds of people that was arguably the worst news of their lives, and in 5 years hadn't gotten any easier. Today's appointment was no exception. When the doctor explained to Alice Stanhope that she had cancer, it was almost as though she didn't hear. A severe case of denial, most likely, which was why they asked patients to bring a support person with them to appointments, so that they could hear what the patient could not. There wasn't anyone, Alice said. Was that possible? In 5 years of Stanford healthcare, Kate has never heard of this. Most patients were surrounded by people in chemotherapy and post-op. Usually Kate's problem was getting all of them to leave so the patient could rest. The ideal scenario in Kate's expertise was for patients to have one primary support person. There was something about pairs, the yin and the yang, when one fell apart, the other was strong. When one zoned out, the other would listen. Yet Alice Stanhope didn't have a single person she felt that could nominate to walk beside her in what was going to be the hardest journey of her life, which meant that Kate would have to do her job a little better than usual. Kate knew that there was one more thing that a patient needed more than a doctor, more than a nurse, and even more than a medicine, and that was a mother. Someone to reassure them, to fluff their pillows, to give them that look of certainty that they were in a good hands. Someone to fight for them. At the age of 9, after an emergency appendectomy, Kate learned this firsthand. Her father widowed when Kate was just a toddler. He had visited her every night, but it was Anne, Kate's nurse, a short brown hair with thick ankles, who cuddled her before she fell asleep. It was Anne who shooed the younger nurses out of the room and wheeled old TV and VCR along with kids' movies she'd rented at Blockbuster on her way to her shift. It was an Anne who told her that under no circumstances what she was to eat her vegetables. For those 2 weeks, Kate had a mother. Now Kate strived to be that mother for her patients. Lunch? Kate looked up from her desk. Dr. Chris stood up in her doorway. He was so tall his head almost brushed the top of the door frame. His top button was undone, and his skin had a bluish tinge. Lunch? Kate glanced at her watch. It's not even 11 a.m. When you're called into surgery at 3 a.m., lunchtime is whenever you have a break, he said. Oh, I managed to get Alice Stanhope's surgery scheduled for Monday. Perfect. Kate reached for a pen. What time? First up, 8 a.m. Kate wrote on the details in her desk calendar. Alice Stanhope, Biotridol Salpingo Opportunity. The one thing Kate couldn't get to use was that you couldn't see the cancer. Alice in particular looked well, blondish and slim, with short tousled hair. She was the picture of Meg Ryan back in her heyday. The image of health. It was always a shock to learn that someone like her had cancer. Chris leaned against the doorframe. What do you think was up with Alice's daughter? What did she say? That she isn't like a normal teenager? I wondered that myself, Kate said. Who knows? Some kind of special needs, maybe? Geez, I hope not, he said. They both drifted into silence for that moment. Eventually Chris shook his head. Well, we'll just have to take extra good care of her mother, won't we? Sometimes Kate loved Chris Brooks. All right, he said, I guess I'll get one of those plastic salads from the cafeteria. Those salads are probably causing the cancer that we treat here, We're probably keeping ourselves in business. When he had drifted off down the corridor, Kate listened to her voicemail. She had 2 messages. The first from an anxious middle-aged woman wanting information about her newly diagnosed breast cancer. The second from David, who had seen cheap fares to Cancun and thought it was a high time for a second honeymoon. Or what do they call them nowadays? He added, a baby moon? Kate's eyes drifted back to her desk calendar, specifically to the post-it note on the bottom of tomorrow's date. 12 weeks, she'd written. 11 weeks and 2 days earlier, when she'd seen the 2 pink lines appear on her pregnancy test. She promised her fertility doctor she wouldn't take. Twice before, she'd written on this note on the post-it, but those had ended up in the trash, 7 and 9 weeks respectively. This time, she had made it to 12 weeks. Almost. It was the final piece of her puzzle, growing inside her, ready to make them whole. All Kate needed to do was hold on to it. So that is the end of Chapter 2. I'll see you in the next video for Chapter 3.